Let's go down to Kokomo.
Day 23. Saturday, the 7th of November. Orandestad, Aruba. My 2 hours of well-being training went slowly, as I was extremely tired, after only having had a very short amount of sleep. I was then informed that I had casino training at 11 a.m. With an hour to spare between the two, it wasn't enough time to go back to bed, so I went up to shoot some hoops on the court, as they say. Having already docked in Curacao, there was very little breeze, and I was soon roasting up on the top deck. I had a quick shower, throwing some laundry in the machine en route, and was in the casino in full uniform by 10:58 a.m. Not bad going at all. By 11:15, there were still no signs of our training leader, so Dejan from Croatia and I headed off to find the correct cabin number and called to see what the story was. It turned out our training had been cancelled, which was really frustrated, as I'd hung around needlessly and got all dressed up for nothing. I could have been getting some sleep, or off on the mainland exploring. I quickly brushed aside my anger though, as I was in a gorgeous place in idyllic weather. With my cabin mates all still sleeping, I chose to head off alone. Upon reaching the shore, I was informed that the beaches were a 25-minute taxi ride away. That was going to be expensive, so I wandered into town instead. Curacao is a very beautiful and colourful country, with some really fascinating architecture. There were some great shops, but I decided to have a refuel and quick internet catch-up in Subway of all places. I love Subway, and even the double chocolate cookies were identical to the ones back home. After abusing the Wi-Fi for a short time, I walked around downtown before heading home with the intention of stopping off in the island casino, swimming in the crew pool, and then rescuing my laundry. I was stopped by Becky, Andrea and Tiffany on the swing bridge though, and they convinced me to return downtown with them. Big mistake. 15 minutes and way too many dollars later, and I was the proud owner of Desmond. For those of you who know me well, you may know my giant toy cow, Colin. I picked him up for considerably less notes than Desmond, but then that's because he was bought second-hand at a car boot sale. Colin used to get up to all sorts of shenanigans when he lived with Hayley and I, and even once went riding out, having hidden all dressed up in the boot of Hayley's car for a week. My roommates were very unsure about the prospect of having another body in the cabin, but by the time we'd finished christening him, I think we'd won them over. Desmond drew lots of admiring glances and more than a few odd looks. After lunch, we continued to internet until the batteries on our phones were exhausted, and then set off wandering around the shops again, in the general direction of home, stopping for photo ops whenever we got the chance. Despite all of us spending hour upon hour in the casino working, the opportunity to attend as a guest was too big an allure to pass up. Once stepping out of the heat and into the air-conditioned gambling club, we found yet more of our colleagues. Why we want to fritter away our hard-earned cash doing practically the same thing as we get paid to do has always mystified me. But then I just spent a good chunk of my wages on a giant stuffed Dalmatian, so I was in no position to judge. After placing Desmond through the X-ray scanner to allow him to take up his place on the Dawn, I settled him in the cabin and went for a swim in the famous webcam pool. I might have to tie him from the ceiling, as he's too large to sit upright in the small space between my bunk and the bulkhead, and rather too big to be sharing my narrow sleeping space with me. If I sit him on the floor, he'll be a health hazard, with someone bound to trip over him in the frequent dark that illuminates our shared room. And as we don't visit Curacao again at any stage, returning him is not an option. In hindsight, he might not be the most practical impulse purchase that I've ever made. And yes, I've no idea how I'm ever going to get him home, but I'm convinced that he's going to bring hours of entertainment, and I can't wait to sit him outside people's cabins, knock on the door and then run off. I know, it really is hard to believe I'm 34 sometimes. After a nice dinner, slathered in the hot chili sauce I'd bought back in Boston, I slowly got ready for work, as the casino didn't open until we sailed for Aruba at 10 p.m. Despite being quite far down the list in order of finishing times, lovely Leonard, our manager, let as many of us as possible go early so that we could attend the crew party being held on the helipad on deck 14. I had seen the 2 trolleys, laden with bottled beverages, labelled crew party, sitting patiently outside the huge refrigerated storage rooms down on deck 3 when attending to my laundry earlier in the day. It was therefore really gutting that by the time I'd finished, the event had been cut short due to rain, and I never made it to the cool venue. Our special treat to be allowed out in the light of day, technically it was actually night of course, was over before it had even started for me. There was a half-hearted attempt to switch the venue to the crew bar instead, and as I was all dressed up with nowhere to go, I joined the revelling masses. I decided to graduate from water to Gatorade, a rehydration aid available in a rainbow of neon tastes, in a bid to spice things up a bit, but the night was lost in my opinion. That was no bar to the 15 people who then descended into our cabin for an after-party. There's not really much room in here for 4 people, so 15 and an oversized toy dog was rather ambitious and left little room for dancing, but again, the attendees showed great determination and perseverance to keep the vibe alive. Finally, they all departed and we were left to get some sleep. Today was the first day that I had nothing on my schedule until evening time when I'm due for work in the casino, having somehow managed to avoid the training tyrants for one day. I afforded myself with a little lie-in, but in my childlike enthusiasm to explore another new destination, I was already up and bounding around at 9 a.m. Bedtime was well past 4:40 a.m. I'm now heading off to the nearest and nicest beach that Aruba has to offer, and we'll let you know how that goes in tomorrow's instalment. And that's all for day 23. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in to day 24's antics tomorrow. Same time, same place. Well, not literally, because this ship never stops. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a day. And if you're enjoying it, like and share it too. Thank you!